Thank you so much. And I want to begin by saying thank you to all of the organizers and all the devotees on this very wonderful and auspicious day. We can speak something about the glories of Lord Nrisimha, the glories of his great devotee Prahlad Maharaj, and also try to imbibe certain lessons from this wonderful pastime. So I'm going to read a verse from the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 9, text number 43. Because we're doing this on Zoom, we won't do call and response for the actual verse itself. I'll read the Sanskrit. I will read the translation. And then we're going to discuss this pastime, and we'll try and bring out certain perspectives on this pastime that can edify, that can inspire, and allow us to look at these wonderful leelas of the Lord with fresh eyes and hopefully fresh understanding as well. Okay, the theme that we will discuss today is the theme of contrast and duality for glorification. Okay, I'll repeat that. The theme will be contrast, duality for the purposes of glorification. Okay, so I'll just say Om Namo Bhagavate 3 times, and we'll read the verse, and then we'll go into it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is 7-943. Okay, so I'll read the Sanskrit, I'll read the translation, and then we'll go into the pastime from there. So this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. And I thought we'd begin with this particular verse because it's such a moving and compassionate expression of a pure devotee. Nevod vijay paraduratyaya vetaranyas twadviya gayana mahamritam Brita magna chita syocheta to vimuka cheta sa indriyata maya sukhaya varam udvahato vimudhan. Translation in purple by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence. For wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. We'll just read the part of the purport, the beginning. Prabhupada says, throughout the entire world, everyone is making big plans to adjust the miseries of the material world. And this is true at present, in the past, and in the future. So Prabhupada is saying this is a feature of material life. Nonetheless, although they make elaborate political, social, and cultural plans, they have all been described herein as vimudha, fools. Actually, it's very interesting. Muda means fools, but when you have the prefix V, it accentuates or intensifies something. So it would even imply very foolish or extremely foolish. The material world has been described in Bhagavad Gita as dukkhalayam ashashvatam, Bhagavad Gita 8:15. Temporary and miserable, but these fools are trying to turn the material world into sukhalayam, a place of happiness, not knowing how everything acts by the arrangement of material nature, which works in her own way. Okay, we'll say prayers and then we're going to discuss. So, Nrisimha Bhagavan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. So we begin by begging the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, by the mercy of the devotees, only by their mercy, we can speak something that will be truly pleasing to the Guru Parampara and truly edifying, nourishing to the soul. So we beg your blessings in that regard. And then, okay, start the video again. And then we will get into this. So we explained that there's a theme in this particular pastime. So I want you to hold that thread or foundation in mind as we go through the story. Contrast and duality for glorification. In order to accentuate or glorify something, it is powerfully done when we see the thing that we want to glorify or value juxtaposed by its contrasting feature. For example, light becomes more illuminous or powerful, bright, when the light is contrasted with the darkness. Day becomes even more distinct when it is contrasted with night. And that which is good becomes highlighted to an intense degree when that which is good is contrasted with that which is evil. So on the Shingadev's appearance day, we see a beautiful, brilliant, and bhakti saturated contrast. We have the contrast between Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu, but the contrast does not stop there, and it does not even begin there. So we want to look at this pastime from many angles. We're going to start with the spiritual world. So we know that the two gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, they are cursed. Jai and Vijay, they're cursed in the spiritual world. They're cursed by the four Kumaras. The writings of the Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he explains that Jai and Vijay, actually what happened was they detected that the Lord had a desire for what's called Vira Ras. He wanted the rasa of chivalry. And because of that, Yoga Maya arranged the situation such that Jai and Vijay were in the presence of the four Kumaras. They would not allow the four Kumaras to enter. The four Kumaras became angry. They cursed Jai and Vijay to take birth as demons. The Bhagavatam says they took birth as demons 3 times. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Shishupal, Dantavakra, different demons they took birth as. It actually says in the Bhagavatam they took birth 3 times. Actually, they took birth 4 times. They came a 4th time. The 4th time that they came was as Jagai and Madai in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. But that's a whole other story. So we have these pure devotees, Jai and Vijay, who take birth as demons. Contrast. In Prahlad Maharaj's previous life, he was a Brahmana named Vasudev. This is explained in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So first contrast. These gatekeepers take birth as demons. And then we have this Brahmana Vasudev. His father was named Vasusharma. Vasusharma, his father, had 5 sons. The youngest was Vasudev. But Vasudev became attached to a prostitute. So he became attached to a prostitute, engaged therefore in so much sinful activity. But one day, Vasudev and the prostitute, they got into a quarrel. And due to that particular quarrel, they did not eat all day and they did not sleep all night. That day that they did not eat and did not sleep, that was a day dedicated to the Lord. So they performed pious spiritual activity on that particular day. And that gave them so much spiritual or devotional mercy or credit that the prostitute in her next life, she became an Apsara. And then in the life after that, she went back home, back to Godhead. And Vasudev, that Brahmana who was attached to a prostitute, in his next life, he became the great devotee Prahlad Maharaj. So the first contrast, you have the eternal associates in Vaikuntha take birth as demons. You have this Brahmana, Vasudev. He also takes birth as a demon. So where's the difference? Where's the duality? You have the devotees who take birth as a demon. You have the Brahmana who takes birth in a demoniac race. But Hiranyakashipu is a demon through and through. Contrast. Prahlad Maharaj has been born in the family of demons, a race of demons. But he has the birth of demons, but the bhava of a devotee. So this is the first contrast. Very interesting. On the outside, you could say he's a demon, externally by birth, but by activities and by the consciousness, which is the most important. He's a pure devotee. So this whole pastime has so many of these different contrasts. There's a question that comes up in the beginning of the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, talking about how the Lord seems to be partial to the devas and inimical to the devotees. One thing we can take from this pastime is that actually samoham sarvabhuteshu. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says he's equal, kind, merciful to everyone. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. He has no favorites. At the same time, yeyatamam prapadyante. At the same time, he's reciprocating with each and every living entity according to our approach towards him. So in this pastime, ultimately, Prahlad Maharaj is made to be the king of the universe. He has a very powerful position. In this pastime, Prahlad Maharaj even doesn't ask for any benediction for himself. The verse we read about at the beginning is another contrast. Hiranyakashipu is ruthless. He wants to subjugate the entire universe, and he tries on various occasions to kill his son. We'll come to that. Contrast, Prahlad Maharaj is actually respectful to his father at all times. Even to the extent that when Lord Nrisimha at the end of this killing pastime, when he asked Prahlad Maharaj to take a boon, Prahlad Maharaj does not ask for anything, but if you want, my dear Lord, please deliver my dear father. Such a contrast. Let's go to the pastime and then we'll discuss some of these particular contrasts. So we see that Hiranyakashipu was a great yogi, but not a great person. He was a great yogi. He performed intense austerities to the extent that when he was performing his austerities, he had practically no flesh on his body. And the austerities were so intense, it attracted the attention of various personalities in the universe. And ultimately, Lord Brahma approached and asked Hiranyakashipu, what is going on here? And then Hiranyakashipu would ask for this boon. The first boon that Hiranyakashipu actually asked for is he was asking for immortality. And it's interesting because Lord Brahma said to him, look, even I have to pass away. Of all created beings, Lord Brahma is the, let's say, the first or the foremost of the created beings in the material universe. But he explains to Hiranyakashipu, look, I can only give what I have. I have to pass away. I have to leave this world. We see this theme amongst the demons. Because of a lack of faith, rather than trusting in the Lord's plan, they think that they can have a superior arrangement. In this verse that Prahlad Maharaj speaks that we read, he talks about this. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making what? Elaborate plans for material happiness. So that understanding is symptomized, is exemplified by Hiranyakashipu. Elaborate plans to do what? To try to remain immortal. So he asked Lord Brahma, I don't want to be killed by this creature, that creature. I don't want to be killed in the daytime, in the nighttime. He thinks that by his intelligence, he can cover all the bases. By my intelligence, I can figure out all the ways that I could be destroyed. And then I can ask for a boon that will protect me from all those different forms of destruction. But why? Hiranya Kashipu. The name means one who is a lover of soft beds and gold. So he wants to be immortal so he can enjoy forever materially. So he's trying to use his own material intelligence to overcome the natural arrangement of Krishna. And that is the ultimate sign of a lack of faith, because the natural arrangement of Krishna is to bring everyone back to the spiritual world, everyone back to spiritual consciousness, everyone back to ultimate and everlasting spiritual happiness in love of Godhead. Demon means that someone thinks that they have a better plan than the Lord. So Lord Brahma grants him all of these different boons. But as we know in the past time, it makes no difference. Ultimately, no one can avoid the plan of the Lord. And this is really important, by the way. As we think through these past times, as we think through the contrast, we should try to understand something. Why is it that no one can overcome the plan of the Lord? The reason is very simple. The Lord Krishna will never allow any living entity to overcome his plan, because his plan is actually for the greatest well-being of the living entities. And just like a loving parent, you do not allow your dependent children to move in a direction which is inferior to their ultimate well-being. It is explained that there are actually 12 rasas. 5 are primary, 7 are secondary. And different forms of the Lord relate to different rasas. So the form of the Lord Nishingadev relates to this Vatsalya ras, this parental and protective mood. Because the parental mood is meant to express protection. So no one can overcome Krishna's plan, because Krishna's plan is always for the ultimate well-being of every living entity. Okay, so Hiranyakashipu versus Prahlad. Prahlad has all the qualities of a great devotee. Contrast, Hiranyakashipu has all the qualities of a demon. In the Bhagavad Gita, divine and demoniac qualities, as we read through those qualities, we see how deeply Hiranyakashipu exemplifies all those demoniac qualities: pride, anger, desire for material enjoyment, desire to engage in acts which are ultimately meant to destroy the world. Such a contrast. Hiranyakashipu is old. Prahlad Maharaj is young. Contrast. Hiranyakashipu is ruthless. He wants to subjugate all of the entire material creation. The Brahmanas are not allowed to engage in their sacrifices. He wants to subjugate the demigods. Prahlad Maharaj, completely serene, completely compassionate, completely tolerant, forgiving, and patient under all circumstances. Contrast. So, in this pastime, Hiranyakashipu, in this activity of trying to subjugate the world, he's very active in this negativity. We see the contrast. Prahlad Maharaj, under all circumstances, is completely serene, having no worries. No worries. And what was the cause of that? Prahlad Maharaj had faith. Hiranyakashipu, no faith in Krishna, no faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prahlad Maharaj, complete faith, leading to complete peace, complete protection, complete tolerance, and complete compassion. Never at any point in the pastime and in the exchanges between Prahlad Maharaj and his father did Prahlad ever become angry. Did Prahlad ever become fearful? Okay. Now the question is how? How was Prahlad so great? We know in his past life, he actually performed some devotional austerity, but the story explains even more. This pastime explains even more. Prahlad Maharaj, he heard about the Supreme Lord from the Lord's supreme devotee. When Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb, he heard about Krishna, he heard about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee, from Narada Muni. And by hearing the glories of the Lord within the womb, he developed this tremendous, transcendental, fixed faith. So we can understand that the highest piety comes by hearing. What is the Bhagavatam saying at the beginning? Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. I constantly hear devotees being concerned about purity. Especially in our beginning stages, it is a misdirection. More than concern about purity, we should be concerned about practice. Why? Because it is the practice that makes the purity. Two states. One patient is concerned, I've got a serious health issue. I'm concerned that the health issue goes. Concern, concern, concern. Another patient has the same health issue. Their focus isn't on the health issue. Their focus is on taking the medicine properly. What is the boon of taking our spiritual medicine properly? What is the boon of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention, regularly, properly? It is explained in the Bhagavatam itself that Krishna cleanses within the heart of a devotee who has developed the willingness to hear his messages, the message of the Bhagavatam regularly. He cleanses within the heart of such a devotee all that is troublesome to the heart. Isn't that a very powerful blessing? More than the perfection, at our stage, we should be concerned with the practice that will lead to the perfection. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. The misdirection of Maya is that I'm worried because I think that I have to make myself pure. No. What I should be concerned about is being in contact with Krishna's purifying process. Krishna's process is non-different from Krishna. The Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. It is the literary incarnation of Godhead. So if I stay in regular touch with the medicine, if I take the medicine properly, purely, and consistently, then by the potency of the medicine, not by my potency, but by the potency of the medicine, I will be cured and fully restored to my natural healthy condition. Practice will lead to perfection. So when Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother, the actual Devatas attacked. So Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother while Hiranyakashipu was engaging in the austerities. So the Devatas attacked while Hiranyakashipu was engaging in that tapasya. So his wife being pregnant with Prahlad, Indra wanted to kill her. Narada Muni stopped the demigods from killing Prahlad in the womb. So this was actually an attempt at abortion. Narada Muni explained that there is a great devotee in the womb of this particular lady. So Narada Muni took Prahlad's mother to Narada Muni's ashram. She served Narada Muni with faith. He gave her transcendental knowledge, and that transcendental knowledge was entered into the consciousness of Prahlad Maharaj. when we are in the womb and when the child is very, very young. In both of those stages, according to Ayurveda, the child's intelligence, that filter of the intelligence has not developed. So whatever is told to the child, whatever impressions are given to the child, it goes straight through and leaves an impression directly on the mind. When we are older, when we are adults, there are two filters which have developed: the filter of the intelligence and the filter of the ego. So in adult life, anything that is said, it does not go directly to the mind. It goes through those filters. And those filters can alter the impression, or they can block the impression, depending on how the consciousness or how the intelligence and how the ego is constituted. It can even filter out the favorable messages of devotional service. But when the child is very, very young, everything immediately goes through to the mind and leaves a very strong impression at those stages of life. So Prahlad heard those messages and he became totally free of fear of material existence. It's interesting. His mother actually forgot some of the instructions given to her by Narada Muni, but Prahlad never forgot the instructions that he received in the womb, even when he came out. So in this pastime, Prahlad eventually went to school. His father asked him what he had learned. He addressed his father very respectfully. Interesting, very respectfully, but very honestly. Very, very interesting parallel. Honest communication, respectful communication. What could he say that's so honest but respectful? Oh, best of the demons. My dear father, you are the best. You're the best at being a demon. Isn't that very interesting? Very interesting communication. Prabhupada says that a fool remains hidden until they speak. When we listen carefully to the speech of an individual, you can understand so much about the person's consciousness. Prahlad Maharaj, he doesn't change the truth. You're a demon. But at the same time, he's not coming from any place of malicious or insulting tendency. He's respectful, symptom of a higher mode. He's truthful, symptom of a higher mode. He's direct, symptom of a higher mode. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about austerities of speech. So when we hear such a great personality, we can understand this coherence, this beautiful coherence. It's always coherent. One thing in the Bhagavatam is directly related to another thing in the Bhagavatam, which is related to another thing in the scripture, which is related to another thing in the scripture. It is all a wonderful, seamless and coherent tapestry. It's so beautiful. This is one of the ways in which you can understand that what we have been given is completely true. If something was made up, you would find contradictions which cannot be reconciled, which don't seem to make sense no matter how you look at it. But what you find in the teachings of Krishna consciousness, even if something seems to be contradictory, if you dive into it deeper, you'll find everything is beautifully reconciled. So Bhagavad Gita is beautifully reconciled with the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, the way he speaks, it matches what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Austerities of speech, consisting of speaking words which are what? Truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not unnecessarily disturbing to the minds of others. Now, this is an interesting one. Not unnecessarily disturbing. Sometimes if you say something nicely, if someone is very demoniac, no matter what you say, what you do, they're disturbed, but you've not disturbed them. You've not offended them. It's just that they've taken offense. You see, there's a difference. I may speak in a way which is not malicious and not offending, but if someone else is very, very easily triggered and has strong pride, they may be offended even where there's no offense. Prahlad Maharaj calls his father, respectfully, best of the demons. Contrast again. Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. Prahlad speaks respectfully, he speaks humbly, he speaks truthfully to his father. His father responds with great envy, hatred, anger, even to the point that Hiranyakashipu will try on various occasions to kill his own young child. Now think about that. If that came out in modern society, BBC headlines, father tries to kill 5-year-old child, it'll be a national outrage, isn't it? This is exactly what's going on. Before it got to that point, Hiranyakashipu, he actually saw that his son was not taking on these demoniac teachings. Hiranyakashipu even warned Prahlad's teachers, Sanda and Amaka, be careful. There might be some kind of Vaishnava or devotional influence in the school, right? Because this child is not becoming demoniac in the way that we're expecting. Later on, Hiranyakashipu will again ask Prahlad, what was the best thing that he's learned? And Prahlad Maharaj will talk about the ninefold process. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. This is the essence of all teaching. Smartavyam Satatam Vishnu. What are we meant to be doing? What is Vaishnava? Vaishnava is one who is always remembering Krishna. Manmana Bhava Madbhakto, and who never forgets Krishna. Our life is our preparation for our death. Prahlad Maharaj, even though young, he has life, he has devotional life. Hiranyakashipu, even though old, he is simply preparing his own death by his material consciousness. This lover of soft beds and gold. He's absorbed in material consciousness and he's preparing for the natural outcome of material consciousness. Because material consciousness simply means preparation for repeated death. Whereas spiritual consciousness means the absorption in eternal life. Contrast. So Prahlad Maharaj represents that eternal life that is the nature of the soul. Hiranyakashipu represents that material death, which is the nature of the body. Again, contrast. So when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad what he's learned, Prahlad talks about this ninefold process. You see, interesting lesson from Prahlad. Prahlad tells his father that material life is just like chewing the chewed. And you know, when you read the Bhagavatam, there's so much deep instruction. We hear these statements, chewing the chewed, but do we analyze these statements? What does that mean? You take something in that seems to have some initial flavor, but the more you work hard with that particular substance, the less you get. Think about that carefully. It means that the very nature of material pursuits is diminishing returns. And this is such a scientific statement by Prahlad Maharaj. It's such a scientific statement. When we're young and the body is young, we have a lot of energy. So we're working, we're engaging a lot of that energy. We can sleep a few hours, we can run around a lot. And as we're engaging in more and more and more material activities, trying to get more and more enjoyment out of the material world, the very act of doing that is now making the body more and more weak. So now the body's going up, it gets a bit older, and at a certain point, the body reaches its peak of energy and activity, and then it starts to go down. So we're engaging in more and more activity, and then after a while, as we engage in more and more activity, we're getting less and less. So this arc, the arc of material life, I have to work harder and harder for less and less enjoyment. Did you ever think about that? And it's actually much worse than that. This is what really kills us. This is what really kills a living entity. The difficulty is that when we were trying to work harder and harder for material enjoyment, there was a secret prison that we entered into. As we worked harder and harder for material enjoyment, we entered the secret, invisible prison of the material habits, the material samskar. So it's not just that we were working more and more for material enjoyment, we became addicted to the material energy. So even now, we get older and older, but I'm still addicted to the material energy. So Krishna consciousness is meant to break the addiction. Otherwise, what happens is, because we enjoyed so much, when we get older, we find it harder to let go of the material energy and to connect with the spiritual energy. And that means that we become embarrassed by another Jamma, Mritya, Jara, Vyadi. Dukkha, Dosha, Nudarshanam. We become embarrassed again by birth, old age, disease, and death. Don't let the material energy make you embarrassed again. This is why we're meant to practice Krishna consciousness. And Prahlad Maharaj tells his classmates that we should practice from a young age. And young means now. It doesn't matter how old the body is. The moment we understand the value of Krishna consciousness, it means you're young in age. The moment we take the Krishna consciousness seriously, it means we are young in age. Worse than the material activities is the material addiction. So we want to free ourselves of the addiction now. We should start now. Take it seriously now. In every single one of us, we have a Hiranyakashipu and we have a Prahlad. They are two ends of the same spectrum. Two ends of the same spectrum. And we have to ask ourselves a question in our spiritual life. What percentage of me is the Hiranyakashipu? What percentage of me is the Prahlad? Hiranyakashipu represents the lower self. Prahlad represents the higher self, the soul. Hiranyakashipu represents the body, the senses that want to enjoy sex, money, sense gratification. Prahlad Maharaj represents the soul who wants to serve. Hiranyakashipu represents the body because he's old. One lifetime after another, infinite lifetimes, taking birth in the material body, dying. Diseased in the material body, old age in the material body, death in the material body, birth in the material body. Prahlad Maharaj represents the soul, ever young, youthful, energetic, peaceful, compassionate, merciful. How much of me is a Hiranyakashipu? How much of me is a Prahlad? Every day we should ask ourselves this question, and every day we should ask ourselves, how can I ensure that I make progress towards Prahlad? Okay, so Prahlad Maharaj talks about this chewing the chewed. We keep working so hard and get less and less and less. It doesn't even matter how much we have, because as the senses get older, we can enjoy less, isn't it? As your senses get older, it doesn't matter what you have, your ability to experience it goes down and goes down and goes down and goes down. This is a trap of the material energy. So what is it to be intelligent? What is it to be intelligent? I was having a conversation with one devotee, very intelligent person, and we were analyzing this. And I started to see that there's a specific quality of an intelligent person. It's a hidden quality. When an intelligent person engages in an activity, you can tell that they're intelligent because they've thought about the activity and they've also considered the ramifications of the activity. So they're doing something now and they understand the long-term outcomes of what they're doing now. And that's intelligent. Right? Two things. Alpamedashaha, one who has little intelligence, Hiranyakashipu, little intelligence, doing all of these things, but you're going to die. It's unwise to spend all of your time and energy in activities which will give you no lasting benefit, and you're going to die. And not only are you going to die, you're then going to have to pay for everything that you've done. Alpamedashaha, little intelligence. Then you have Prahlad, Sumedashaha. Everything he does liberates him. Everything he does not only gives him bliss now, but it gives him bliss forever. You cannot even think about an investment in the material world which is like that. Someone tells you, I've got some stocks in a particular company. If you invest in this particular company, the return that you're going to get is forever. Think about it. Right? You have characters in the material world. You have famous billionaires in the material world. Elon Musk, for example, many of you will have heard of him. A billionaire, a very powerful person in the material world. If he says something about a particular company that's negative, he's so powerful that just by saying that particular company is no good, or this particular company is not going to last the long term, immediately the value of the shares in that company will go down, right? Because people will believe what he says. If he says this company is no good, the shares, the company is not going to last the distance, I would never invest in that company, people will think, okay, he must be right. That means that this company probably isn't going to do well in the long term. And then people will start to stop buying shares in that company, and therefore the share price in the company will go down. He can literally devalue a company overnight to the tune of billions of pounds or dollars. This Krishna consciousness is an internal, and an infinite, eternal investment. So this is the logic of the Shastra. If we are wise, we're going to be like Prahlad. We're going to invest in something that will give us results eternally. And it will free us also of this addiction to the material energy. So, Prahlad Maharaj has told his father, you're just chewing the chewed. And that's exactly correct. It's scientific. Hiranyakashipu is so angry that he declares, my son should be killed. And various attempts are made to kill Prahlad. Very interesting, actually. One of the points that comes up in the Shastra is that Prahlad was taken to a mountain and he was thrown into the ocean. And in one of the commentaries, it's explained that the Lord allowed Prahlad to just keep falling. So it's not that as he was falling, he was immediately saved. That's not what happened. He was falling and falling and falling. The Lord wanted to see, what would Prahlad do? I just want to understand, what would Prahlad do? Prahlad remained completely fixed. He remained completely serene. And just before he crashed into the ocean, he was saved by the Lord. There's a real deep lesson there for all of us devotees, for us as a spiritual family. We should not think that when we are going through difficulties, that Krishna is not there. We should not think as devotees that when we're going through tests, that Krishna is not there from the beginning through to the end. Why is it that we go through tests and challenges? I want to give you another lens on the challenges that we face in life as devotees. Sometimes our greatest challenges are our greatest merciful gifts from Krishna. How do I explain this? Imagine that you're working in a company and you work very hard, you're very sincere. The boss, the head of the company, has heard about you. They've heard that there's a member of staff, this person, he or she, very dedicated, hardworking, conscientious. What does the head of the company do? If he sees that you do really good work, you're very responsible, very hardworking, very serious, does he give you less work or more work? What do you think? If he sees you're very competent, will he give you more or less to do? He'll give you more. And if he sees you're very competent, does he give you the easy, low value stuff in the company, the stuff that's not going to make any difference? Or does he give you the more important, high level, strategic, significant, substantial things to do which relate to the company, the good of the company? He gives you the most important things. So the devotee's life is like that. Again, we talked about this theme, contrast, duality for glorification. Prahlad Maharaj, if he had it easy, we would not be reading about these pastimes today. Because he had one test after another test and remained faithful throughout, that is why he's so glorified. He was falling and falling and falling, and just at the last minute, the Lord saved him. And Prahlad knew, he had complete faith that my Lord will protect me. There's this beautiful, and you can use these prayers, by the way, this is beautiful prayer. 5th Canto Bhagavatam, chapter 18, text number 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Nrisimhaya, Namaste Tejase Abhiya Abhiya Bhava, Vajranaka Vajradam Strakamasayan, Randaya Randaya Tomo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha, Abhiyam Abhiyam Atmani, Huyishta On Shroom. In this beautiful prayer in the Bhagavatam, the Lord is offered obeisances. I'm just going to read you the translation. It's actually a prayer for fearlessness. It is a prayer that you, as a devotee, can use. You can pray like this to the Lord to remove all the ignorance, because fear is ignorance. To remove all the ignorance so that we can become fearless like Prahlad. Let's recite this, or I'll just recite the translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy, we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. Our fear is due to the ignorance, and our ignorance is the lack of understanding, Bahiya Nishimo, Hridaya Nishimo, that wherever we are, in all places, times, and circumstances, Krishna is present. Prahlad Maharaj, he had that realization. It wasn't just an intellectual understanding. This understanding was rooted to the soul. He understood wherever I am, Krishna is present. He loves me, he cares for me, he will always protect me, and I'm his surrendered servant. And because of this mood, he always felt fearlessness. And as we purify our hearts, we will always feel fearlessness. And the energy that permeates our ISKCON movement is the energy of Prabhupada, the mercy of Prabhupada, who is what? A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Abhay Charanaravinda, one who is fearless at the lotus feet of the Lord. So this fearless mood, this is the inheritance, this is the offering of our founder Acharya. Let's move on. So, Hiranyakashipu is very, very angry. Actually, at one point, Hiranyakashipu says to Prahlad, we've tried various attempts to kill you, but you seem to have this power, which causes you to continue to live. Where is this power coming from? Very interesting answer from Prahlad. I get my, let's say, mercy from the same source as you, Father. Aham savasi pravavo, mata savam pravatate, iti matva vijante mam Bhuta Bhavana vitaha. Everything is coming from Krishna. Whatever an individual has or doesn't have, ultimately, it is only by the arrangement of the Lord. He is the source of everything. Hiranyakashipu becomes even more angry. If your God is everywhere, is he in this pillar? Prahlad says, yes. Hiranyakashipu smashes the column. When he smashes the column, a roar begins to come. And it's a completely unusual roar. And then the Nrsimhadev appears and he kills Hiranyakashipu, but in such a way that he maintains the boon that Brahma had given to Hiranyakashipu. It's interesting. Krishna, Name Bhakta Prayasyati. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, you declare it that my devotee shall never perish. It's a very interesting turn of phrase. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you tell them. They know I'm a bit of a trickster. If I say something, they'll think, yeah, Krishna, I know, he can be a bit funny sometimes. He can be a bit tricky. So you say it. Krishna maintains the word of his devotee even more than he maintains his own word. This is a theme. What does this mean? Dear devotees, this means something very deep and very touching. Krishna is prepared to break his own word. That means he's prepared to break his own reputation for you. He says it in the battle of Kurukshetra, I'm not going to fight. But when Bhishma Dev is going to kill Arjuna, Krishna himself breaks his own words. The personality of Godhead that we worship, the personality of Godhead who we are being given the opportunity to adore, to love, to serve, to meditate upon. Our God, the God, is a personality who is so beautiful, so touching, that his love is above his own law. This is a theme of Krishna consciousness. It is love is above the law. Personality is above the process. What does that mean? Krishna's mercy is the supreme truth, this Kripa Shakti. And even more, the devotee is above the divinity. Krishna consciousness is ultimately a personal expression of grace. It is a personal expression of compassion. And therefore we should never give up hope. Rupa Goswami's Ashabandha prayers, Na prema shravanadi bhakti apiva. I don't have love of Godhead. He does have love of Godhead, but the devotees are so beautiful that the most qualified feel themselves to be the least qualified. Again, a contrast. Hiranyakashipu, he feels, I can't be defeated because I've got the boon. No one can touch me. Prahlad Maharaj, he's fearless, but there's no sense of pride, no sense of arrogance. No, he's not showing off. Look, I'm a bhakta, right? I'm with Nrsimhadev. He's half man, half lion. If you mess with me, he messes with you. Nothing like that. He's completely peaceful. Nothing to prove. That is a sign of fearlessness. That is a sign of confidence. In other words, the beauty of our process, the beauty of our acharyas is the following. Those who have it don't flaunt it. And those who flaunt it, they don't have it. It's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Think about that. The more someone becomes advanced, the more someone becomes qualified, the more humble they become. Isn't that beautiful? In the material world, it's completely the opposite. A person has more, they start showing off. Look at me, right? I'm better than you. I've got more than you. I've got more prestige than you. I've got more money than you. The more that they have, if they don't have proper consciousness, the less humility they display. And in Krishna consciousness, it's the opposite. Prabhupada is giving a talk. He's giving a class. He's talking about the four varnas. He's talking about the first class man, the second class man, the third class man, the fourth class man. The students in the audience are getting so angry. And one of the students just says, Okay, yes, you Swami, I get it. You're saying that because you think you're a first-class man, don't you? Prabhupada starts crying. He pauses and then he says to the audience, he says, no, you don't understand. He says, I am a fifth-class man because I am simply the servant of everyone. Those who have it don't flaunt it, and those who flaunt it, they don't have it. Contrast. Contrast. And the devotee is above the divinity. At the end of this pastime, as we mentioned, of all the things, Prahlad could have asked for anything. Nrsimhadev says to him, you ask a boon from me. And Prahlad says to him, I don't want anything. He said, but if you want, my dear Lord, you can deliver my father. And what does Nrsimhadev reply? He says he's already delivered. Before you've even asked, he's already delivered. The devotee is above the divinity. Krishna's mercy is in the hands of his devotees. He will follow the dictates of his pure devotees. Krishna Karshani, Nectar of Devotion, explains this. He likes to be the servant of his devotees. So contrast, the materialist wants to be the master and the master wants to be the servant. Why? Because there's more bliss in being the servant than there is in being the master. That is the esoteric reason behind Lord Chaitanya's coming. So interesting. So, Nrsimhadev has killed Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu smashes the column. Nrsimhadev comes, he killed Hiranyakashipu. It's interesting that actually in the Nrsimha Purana, it said that when Nrsimhadev tore Hiranyakashipu apart, at one point, he didn't know where Hiranyakashipu was because he was so angry. He was so angry. He was just roaring with anger. And he was like, where is this demon? Where is he? And then he looked down and he saw that Hiranyakashipu was under his fingernails. Right? This is how angry Nrsimhadev was. In another yuga, Hiranyakashipu actually, in another yuga, Nrsimhadev walks in to kill Hiranyakashipu. In a different yuga, Nrsimhadev flies in and kills Hiranyakashipu. So this same pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance, it actually is enacted in slightly different ways in different yugas. Contrast. We can say that this day is either the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. That's normally how it's marketed. Or we can say it is the disappearance day of Hiranyakashipu. It's another contrast, right? Another contrast. Who are we focusing on? If we're focusing on the Lord, he appeared. If we're focusing on the demon, he disappeared. Yeah, another special meaning. But there's more. After Nrsimhadev appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu, he did not calm down straight away. When he killed Hiranyakashipu, this is such a beautiful detail. When Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, he remained angry. He actually remained angry. The demigods, they could not approach Nrsimhadev. They were scared, and his fury was such they could not approach him. The demigods, they asked Lakshmi Dev, please, please approach him. He's so angry. She told them, look, when he's in this mood, I can't approach him. I can't. Eventually, Prahlad would approach him. And when Prahlad approached Nrsimhadev, only then did he calm down. Why is it the demigods could not approach Nrsimhadev? He was actually angry with the demigods as well. This is a beautiful and loyal love of the Lord for his devotees. He was upset with the demigods because while Prahlad was facing all these different obstacles and challenges and attacks, the demigods, they didn't help him. Nrsimhadev was angry. How could you allow my devotee to go through this and you did nothing? This deep loyalty of the Lord. The deep loyalty of the Lord. So what that means for us is that We depend on the Lord, but we also know the Lord's mercy comes through the devotees. How is it that we will know that there is a God? How is it that this entire world, society, will know that there's a supreme personality of Godhead? They will only know if the prema, if the love that is being spoken of in the pages of the Bhagavatam is demonstrated in real time through the words, actions, and the mood of the devotees who represent the Lord. People will know there's a divine love if the devotees express divine love. People will know that there's divine compassion if the devotees express divine compassion. This is how it works. So on this day of Lord Nrisimhadev's appearance, or Hiranyakashipu's disappearance, however you want to play it, again, divine contrast. We want to be like our founder Acharya in the sense of being fearless. We want to have compassion, Prahlad's compassion for the Lord. This verse that we read at the beginning, I'm only concerned, right? So this is the 7th canto that we read at the beginning, 9th chapter, text number 43. I'll read it one more time just to refresh our memory, and then we'll open up the questions. Prahlad says, "O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I am, wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness. I am simply concerned with love for them." Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know how much time we have. We should make plans. We should make plans. But we should make plans for our spiritual happiness, Krishna consciousness. And when we take Krishna consciousness seriously, we are making plans for our spiritual happiness. This is sankalpa, a vow and an intention related to our spiritual happiness. So on this day of Lord Nrisimhadev's appearance, we want to encourage you. Think about the contrast and the duality of this pastime, of this day. So many contrasts between the demon who's actually a devotee and the demon who is acting as a demon. Hiranyakashipu versus Prahlad. The contrast of the material austerity leading to death of Hiranyakashipu, material austerities to get the boon of Brahma, leading to his ultimate death, versus the spiritual, loving austerity, leading to eternal life of Prahlad. Contrast the externality. Prahlad externally is born in the family of demons, but the internality, the eternality, eternally he's a great devotee. And how did he come to this particular point? Hearing. He heard in the womb of his mother the teachings of Krishna consciousness from a great devotee. Again, lesson for us. We want to hear. We want to hear like someone who's preparing for new life. Prahlad was in the womb, preparing for life, preparing to come out of the womb. We should consider we're in the womb of Maya, but by hearing this Krishna Katha properly, we're preparing to enter into real spiritual life, where we will awaken to our spiritual identity. And it will come by this careful, sincere, innocent. When the child is in the womb, it is not just hearing, it is completely innocent hearing with absolutely no filter. I'm just trying to absorb and give my heart fully open to every vibrant syllable, prema-filled syllable of the Bhagavatam. Okay. Sri Nrisimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Janita Gaur Pramanandi Hari Hari Bol. We have some time for any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for a very thoroughly enriching class and insight. And I just loved your theme of contrast and duality. So I have a question with regards to contrast. Sometimes we hear that we should reflect on our past and contrast it to the blessing that we have in our present in our life with Krishna. And you touched on a few of those points, but to kind of make that more of a practical, reflective exercise in our life, what might be your insight or guidance on undertaking that contrast in our life, its necessity, and how we can draw value from it? And specifically, how do we ensure then, in drawing value from doing an exercise like that, that it doesn't become indulgent in the dualities of material life?
Absolutely. Thank you for a wonderful and, as always, thoughtful question. Give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so the contrast has to have its own phal or fruit for it to be healthy. So you can understand that you're taking on this endeavor to make some kind of contrast, some kind of reflection. You can understand that it's favorable to devotional service if the results of that contrast increase your enthusiasm for spiritual life. So, for example, one outcome of healthy contrast is gratitude. So in this pastime, we look at Prahlad's previous life and what he became. Okay, he committed some unknowing devotional service, but look what he became. In our own life also, we can consider, okay, I've made so many mistakes in the past, but look how much I'm being given now. Look at the opportunities. Actually, this is a key thing. What we want to do is to use the contrast to become aware of the present opportunities. Okay, I've been trying to work on something for many years, and then I'll be honest, it's drawn me tremendous, so much benefit. I've tried to see Krishna's patterns in my own life. I've constantly tried to see, what are the patterns? What is Krishna trying to teach me? What are the recurring patterns? What are the things that I hear from devotees again and again and again? Bhuta Bhavana, I think you should do more of this. Or Bhuta Bhavana, I think you should do less of this. What are the statements that I've heard from my Shiksha gurus and my Diksha guru again and again, right? I've tried to look at that, and I've also tried to look at the implications of those statements, you see, and try to piece the things together. So contrast, okay, there's certain behaviors I've engaged in the past. I look at that in relation to the statements and instructions given to me by my gurus and certain patterns that have come. And taking that together, I tried to understand through the eyes of scripture, what are the implications for my future? Okay, for example, I'll give you a very interesting example, which I was just sharing with someone the other day. So I was sharing this actually with a friend yesterday. So I've seen in my own life, actually, I'll make it even more specific. I was at a disciples retreat, disciples of Chandramuli Maharaj. I had a hint of this in my own consciousness. And actually, I was told this in some indirect way a few times. At the end of the retreat, I paid obeisances to Maharaj. I said, Maharaj, thank you. It was a wonderful retreat. Before I go, any last instructions? Maharaj looks at me and he says to me, Bhuta Bhavana. He said, you need to find new and innovative ways to spread Krishna consciousness. He said to me, Bhuta Bhavana, the way your mind works, you always need to find some fresh and innovative kind of way of doing things. You know, I had a hint of that before. I was reflecting yesterday on my life, and I was reflecting, when did I feel most enthusiastic? It was definitely when we were pioneering, finding innovative ways. Even this class, I can't just sit down and give the same kind of, yes, Lord Nrisimha appeared, he killed Hiranyakeshipu. I've got to think, there's got to be some fresh angle here. Okay, so as I'm meditating on the pastime, something fresh, yes, I get this in my heart, contrast. I start to see all these new patterns, patterns of difference between the past life of Hiranyakashipu, the past life of Prahlad, the age of Hiranyakashipu, the youth of Prahlad. So many different things, because I'm always looking for some fresh angle, fresh perspective, because it enlivens me. And then I saw this pattern. Yes, in the past, when this happened, when you were always giving some innovative new angle, it keeps you very, very enthusiastic in your spiritual life. So we're meant to learn from the lessons of the past. There's an exercise we do with leaders, and we get them to do a timeline. We get them to think back over their career. And for us as devotees, we can think about our devotional career. And then what we get them to do is thinking back along your devotional past. For us as devotees, I want you to mark the times where you felt especially enthusiastic. Okay, and so we marked, okay, at this point I felt particularly enthusiastic. At this point I felt particularly enthusiastic. At these times I felt particularly enthusiastic. Then we say to them, okay, what was going on in your spiritual life? What was going on in your consciousness at those times that you felt most enthusiastic in your spiritual life? And so I start to look, yes, at those times where I felt most enthusiastic, I felt that I was around devotees and we really could trust each other. There was great teamship. At those times where I felt most enthusiastic, I felt we were pioneering. And it wasn't just the same stuff that was done before. We were finding new and interesting ways of spreading Krishna consciousness. Those times where I felt most enthusiastic, I was living more simply. I had a more simple life. And then I take from those lessons key ideas that I can apply in my Krishna consciousness now. So I tried to uncover the keys to my devotional enthusiasm. And those keys can be different for each and every devotee because we're personal. What may be particularly infusing one person may not necessarily infuse another in their Krishna consciousness. And I say that beyond the basics. The basics everyone should do. Hearing, chanting, association, reading. Those are basics that should be done by everyone. But then above and beyond that, we all have unique differences because we're all unique individuals and we are all at unique stages in our spiritual life. I was told by one of my Shiksha gurus, okay, Bhuta Bhavana, now you go deeper. At this stage, you go deeper into this Krishna conscious scriptures, reading, hearing, etc. So that is the beauty of it. We don't want to become absorbed in the past. We only touch upon the past to learn the lessons that we will invest in the present to become more Krishna conscious in the present and in the future. That's how we do it. That's how I try to do this in a way which is practical, in a way which keeps me grounded in the present, because I'm not just staying in the past. I'm going to use those lessons and apply them in today, in my life, in my current Krishna consciousness, and have fun with it. Krishna consciousness is a beautiful experiment. Try different things. See, okay, if I preach to this community, how does that feel? Should I be preaching more to older people, younger people? Should I be preaching more of the deeper aspects or giving classes to the newcomers? You know, should we be engaging in this stuff? Should I be doing more management, or should I be doing more advocacy or advisory? Have fun with this Krishna consciousness. Use Krishna consciousness to discover yourself on all levels. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, now take any other question after this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one of the first things that happen when this cleansing of the mirror of the mind takes place is we start to even understand ourselves, even in terms of our actual social tendencies. We start to understand that even more clearly as we move towards understanding ourselves in a purely spiritual sense. Does that help, Pradyumna? Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
I think there's amazing practical nuggets in how you describe that. So not overindulgence in the past, but the lessons in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, you only touch upon the past to learn from it. If you find that you're always in the past, there's something wrong with the practice, and you have to bring yourself back to what am I doing now? And it's only the lessons that I want to bring into the present. That's the only value of the past.
No, it's usually a question devotees ask when they have a guilt of the past and how they are in Krishna consciousness. You know, how did that happen? And I can resonate in my own replies to people who bring that kind of question. I resonate with what you've shared. So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you for your point, because also I had a communication recently with one person who has a lot of guilt about something that happened in the recent past. But I was telling that devotee, guilt is only useful to the extent that it helps us to grow. So it's not that we're guilty for the sake of being guilty. If it makes you a better person, then it becomes a catalyst for current growth. But beyond that, don't hold on to it. And the way to let go of guilt is to think in its opposite sense. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would get his disciples to do something which is also mentioned in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So when devotees dislike each other, he would get them to say, okay, what's one good thing that you do appreciate about the other person? Because the samskar, the impression of dislike, can be rewritten by the impression of appreciation. So in the same way, the impression of guilt can be rewritten by the impression of actually learning and also compassion, actually. You feel bad about something, so you should now practice the opposite dimension. So you can let go of a guilty feeling bad about something you did wrong, by learning what you can do right. And it goes back to our exercise. I let go of the guilt of mistakes in the past by applying the lessons in the present and in the future with appreciation. I made a mistake, but I can appreciate how it's now taught me something that I can now do positively in the present to lead to a better future.
Lovely, thank you so much. And thank you for giving your time today in association for the class.
No,
really
thank you for allowing us to serve. It was, it's for my own purification. So I take it as Krishna's mercy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Do we have time for any other questions, or should we end? I'm going to ask the organizers. Can I take any other questions if there are any others?
Yes, Prabhu, definitely.
Okay. Okay, and there's a question that came up about the quote on fearlessness. Yes, it's from the 5th canto Bhagavatam, chapter 18, text number 8. That's the actual verse that we recited. Om Namo Bhagavate Nrisimha, and it goes on from there. 5th canto, chapter 18, text number 8 of the Bhagavatam.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So if there are no other questions or comments, we wish you a very fearless, devotional, not just at Nrsimha's appearance day. Actually, we wish you a fearless and devotional spiritual life. Please take this mood into the heart that these festival days, these appearance days, they're like a catalyst, but the energy from the catalyst is meant to keep moving even beyond that particular day. Yeah. So if we hold on to a lesson, we keep growing. Yeah. Gora, you have your hand up. I saw.
Hi, Krishna Bhuta Bhavana, Prabhu.
Krishna.
Quick one. Sorry, I was just contemplating on a question and it took me a while. You know, just carrying on with the question with Pradimna Prabhu asked, and you talked about guilty. But how do, like, hypothetically, like, how do this, like, when people have to go through different things in their life, say maybe early childhood or later stages, how do they move on? Because sometimes they hold on to it. So how do we apply this principle of letting go on those situations?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I've thought about this a lot over the years. You see, I'm going to share with you a few things, and part of this answer is slightly intuitive because I think it's something to give that could be useful for all of us as devotees. We have to remember that everything about our consciousness is based upon context. So where we are now in our spiritual life is based upon the context. It's based upon what we've done over the years, what we've read over the years, what we've heard over the years, how we've chanted over the years, how we've been serving over the years. So why do I say that? See, the ability to become detached, in the Bhagavatam, it's explained that some of the side effects of bhakti is our knowledge and detachment. I really want to encourage all the devotees, do not wait for difficult times to arise. Krishna is so kind to all of us. What he does, and I've seen this repeatedly in my own life, what Krishna does in the easy times, he'll always tell us, do your Krishna consciousness properly. Do your chanting properly, do your reading properly, do your hearing properly, do your serving properly. As devotees, we often don't listen. What happens is in our easy times, when things are relatively easy, we take it easy. you see? But Krishna, he's so kind. He knows, okay, I know that 1 year from now, some challenge has to happen in your life. So I'm going to tell you a year before the difficulty comes that you should strengthen yourself. Because I know that if you strengthen yourself now, and if you keep working on yourself now, then in a year's time, when you face these challenges, you're going to be so strong that the challenge won't even feel like a challenge to you. I was doing some exercise this morning, and it was so I was like, I felt everything was aching. It was some yoga because I just had to do a little workout for the body. Everything was like, ow. And if you see the exercises, because I'll tell you honestly, before I ever did anything like this, I thought yoga, yeah, it looks easy, like, you know, stretching your arm here and there, like, you know, easy. But if you actually do it, and I thought to myself, why did it feel so much like hard work? Because when I was doing the yoga, I had to do certain moves, yoga moves, with muscles that I have not exercised previously. Because I haven't exercised those muscles previously, when I was doing it today, it's like, ouch, oh, and it's just like, you know, just trying to recover. So Krishna's very kind to us, you know. I want to encourage all of you. I was talking to a friend of mine and I was talking about this, and it's so true, and I've seen this. Krishna's kind. He wants all of us to build our devotional capacities in the good times. You see, in the good times, when your health isn't bad, all these things, really read and try to understand what you're reading. Pray. Don't think that Krishna is somewhere else. Understand he's with you in your heart. Build the connection, build the connection, the communication. Every time you pray sincerely, every time you read sincerely, every time you chant sincerely, you're repairing the transcendental radio within the heart. You're repairing and cleaning up the signal so you can hear that super soul's guidance within the heart. So if we build our capacities in the easy times, then when the tests come, which they will inevitably for each and every one of us, you won't even know that it was a test. Now, what is the conclusion of what I'm saying? What we experience as a test is directly related to our capacity. The greater our capacity, the less we experience anything in our spiritual life as a difficulty or a challenge. In other words, what's really being explained to us by the pages of Bhagavatam is that something is a challenge to the degree that we've not previously built our own capacities. Okay? Now, that said, if we then hit upon something that's a challenge, okay, there's two dimensions to it. One, we do the best we can in the moment. The trick here is that when we do the best we can in any moment, we never depend on our own capacity, actually. Krishna consciousness means exponential association. When a devotee comes across any major test or challenge, what we are being invited to do at that time is the following formula: my own understanding and strength, plus the guidance of my senior advanced Vaishnavas, plus the support of my peers, plus helping my juniors by teaching them what I also am meant to learn. You see the point? So we can come through any challenge by drawing upon the complete strength of our spiritual network. In the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, text number 12, in the purple, Prabhupada says any major decision should be made under the guidance of some authority. You see? So you don't have to rely on your own intelligence alone when you hit tests. Speak to your seniors, converse with your peers, get their support, share with your juniors what you're learning in real time through the challenges that you're going through. And you can turn the entire challenge into an amazing gateway into another level or another dimension of Krishna consciousness, because now you're drawing upon the collective strength rather than struggling alone. I've seen that what happens in devotees' lives, Maya, she will attack the devotee, and one of the biggest mistakes a devotee will do when they go through a challenge by Maya is they just rely on their own mind. The magic happens when we take the collective strength, the collective intelligence, and the collective realization of the devotees who we've already built a strong and trusting relationship with, and we use that to gain insight that will take us through the challenge and through to another level of consciousness. Otherwise we will just react upon our limited understanding, and often we will then run into more difficulty because we did not take advice before we made those major decisions. Does that answer your question, Gaura Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Krishna will speak through his devotees. Any other questions or comments, please?
There are a couple of questions on the chat. Prabhu, let me read that.
Okay.
A question from Sapna Mataji. It is, Prabhu, you mentioned about praying to Krishna to remove our ignorance, but does this prayer also work when we do it for not only ourselves, but also our near and dear ones, especially when they're not practicing Krishna consciousness? In such a situation, what should be our attitude towards them?
Okay, it's a very wonderful question, Sapna. So first of all, yes, the more we do it for others, the more we do it for ourselves. When we meditate on another person's bad qualities, we will actually develop those bad qualities. And the Mahabharata says, when we meditate and speak about other people's bad qualities, they lose their sinful karma, and we gain the sinful karma of the person that we're criticizing. You see? But the opposite is also true. When we actually have appreciation for other people, pray for other people sincerely, we're also strengthening and nourishing ourselves automatically in that particular process. So we should pray definitely for other people. That should be our attitude. The other thing is, we should ask ourselves honestly, why is it that they're not interested or practicing Krishna consciousness? And to what extent is it because of us? Because sometimes people are resistant because we may not be such a good example, or they're resistant because the way that we put Krishna consciousness forward towards them was done in a way which was not appropriate or not compassionate. And because we pushed it on them, because we may have forced it upon them, because we spoke to them in a condescending or arrogant way, or because we condemned those personalities, therefore they're resistant. So we should, Krishna consciousness and preaching it, it's not just the form, it's the mood. We should give them Krishna consciousness, and we should give them Krishna consciousness in the mood and spirit of Krishna consciousness, which is a mood and spirit of personalism, concern, care, and compassion. If we deliver the Lord's message in the mood of the Lord, then everything will happen. It will be amazing. If we deliver the Lord's message, but without the mood of the Lord's compassion, people will be resistant. Does that answer your question, Sapna?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your question. Do we have any other questions or comments? Oh, one other thing that comes to mind, and that is, I'm going to ask whoever's on, not muted, if they can mute so there's no noise. Okay, one other thing that comes to mind is when we're trying to share Krishna consciousness with other people, we have to also understand that it's a long-term endeavor. We shouldn't expect that necessarily people are going to accept what we have to say overnight. It's a journey. It's a journey to come to Krishna consciousness, and it's a journey to perfect our Krishna consciousness. So we have to be patient. We have to be patient with other people. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to also be patient with the devotees, even within the movement. And in that way, we will always be able to taste the nectar of Krishna consciousness, for which we are always anxious. Okay. And there's one more question I saw, which is in relation to my answer to Sapna. What's the antidote for committing offense number 9, which is to instruct the faithless persons on the glories of the holy name? So what this means is we should try to offer Krishna consciousness in the way which is appropriate to a given individual. Okay, it's just like when you're serving prasadam, you give a little, and then if you see that the person is able to digest it and they want more, then you give more. You see, so you're trying to give them as much as they can take, but you're giving it in small doses, and you're also conscious to see how they're responding. In the same way, we try to make Krishna consciousness available to people appropriately in a way that is attractive, because Krishna is attractive. But if we see that at a certain point, what we're offering, people are then taking it in the wrong way and they're becoming offensive, then we hold back from giving more in this particular way, because now it's having the opposite effect. When we're giving and they're accepting in the positive way, they're making advancement. When we're giving and they're taking offense and they're becoming offensive, then they stop making advancement. So the idea of real giving is you're giving and they're making advancement. The moment our giving stops them making advancement because they're responding negatively, it means that we're no longer giving Krishna consciousness, but we're actually now facilitating their going backwards into the material energy. So that means, okay, you've given as much as they can take at this time. Fine. That sukriti will build up. And if they don't get it from you, they'll get it from someone else, and they'll continue from where they left off. So it's a real art. The other thing I'll say is we sometimes can give to people in ways that they don't even know that they're receiving. For example, we can give prasadam. No one says no to a tasty and delicious offering of prasadam. So that's another way that we can give. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, so if we have no other questions or comments, thank you so much for allowing us to be of service in some way to all of you.